Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for a special Data Privacy Day edition of ISACA Live. I'm Safia Kazi, and I oversee the privacy practices area at ISACA. I'm here today with the CEO of Privacy and Security Brainiacs, Rebecca Herold, to talk about privacy priorities for 2022. Rebecca, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in privacy?
Well, certainly. Good morning, Safia. I'm really happy to be here with you today. I started a long time ago in this field. I earned double Bachelor of Science degrees in mathematics and computer science. And after teaching 7th through 12th grade math and computing for a couple of years, I earned double master's degrees in computer science and education. I know sometimes folks wonder about the degrees people have. I then started my corporate career as a systems engineer at a large multinational financial and healthcare corporation, and I created and maintained their change control system. And it was a very good experience, and the lessons learned still apply today. After being responsible for that online change control system for almost 2 years, I went into the IT audit area, and I also in 1990-91, I performed an enterprise-wide information security audit, the first one they had ever performed there at the company. And as a result of the audit, I recommended that they create an information security department. And I said, hey, you've been working on this for 7 years, or not 7 years, 7 months. So why don't you go ahead and create it? So that was a great opportunity. And I'm really happy I did it. And then for privacy, how I got into it actually happened late 93, 1994, when our business was putting up what they were telling me was going to be the first online bank. And I had the responsibility of establishing the security requirements for the site. And while I was looking into what those requirements should be, I ran across the OECD privacy principles, and I thought we need to address privacy as well. So I spoke with the legal counsel, and they're like, well, that sounds like a good idea, but we don't have any laws for privacy. Can you imagine that today? So back then, they didn't take it on because there were no legal requirements. And I'd gotten to know the CEO of the company because we both came into work at 5:30 in the morning and rode the elevators up together. So he said, well, if you feel strongly about it, why don't you take on the privacy of that website in addition to the security? So ever since then, I've been working with both, you know, well, with IT in addition to security and also privacy, and then of course compliance. And I really, um, I I know that this has been a very great benefit for me to be a hands-on practitioner, in addition to seeing how inextricably the security and privacy and IT issues are all connected. It really does help to make privacy decisions and build a privacy program more effective and more efficient. I created my uh, consulting business, The Privacy Professor, in 2004. And then in January of 2021, I co-founded with my 24-year-old son, Noah, our privacy and security brainiacs SaaS business. And we launched that. Right now, we're providing online education, training, and awareness products and services. So we're continuing to build that out. And that was my third SaaS business that I co-founded.
Great. And so I know, Rebecca, you've done a lot of advocacy work around the recognition of Data Privacy Day. So, why is it valuable to have an official Data Privacy Day and recognize it?
Yes, well, yes, for the 14th year now, I've had the honor and I've been able to have the governor of Iowa, I'm based out of Des Moines, Iowa, to officially declare January 28th as Iowa Data Privacy Day, in addition to, you know, the world recognizing it. I think it's important because when it comes to privacy, a lot of people think it's just a legal issue. and others think it's a technology issue, but really it's an issue that impacts everyone from the time now that we're born. I mean, you see toddlers with smartphones in their hands being online to throughout the entire life that we're dealing with our data and different activities online. We all need to know more about privacy. And you can be the best lawyer in the world, you can be the best systems engineer in the world with technology. But if you do not address the human factors involved with privacy, you're going to have a lot more privacy failures. And we all need to have some accountability for what we do that impacts our own privacy. And I think that's what Data Privacy Day helps to do, is to raise awareness of what everyone needs to do to protect their own privacy.
Absolutely. And so you wrote this fantastic blog post for us on 2022 privacy priorities, and we'll link that for you in the comments. But in that blog post, you looked at three buckets: addressing challenges from the privacy past, current privacy challenges, and then also looking into the future of the privacy landscape. So let's start with the past and how we've kind of reached this point for privacy. Specifically, why have emails served as a root cause for so many privacy problems in the past?
Well, emails, people love emails, even though some might say, and I know a lot of folks, even like my sons who are in their early 20s, they don't send emails that often, but still there's a lot of things they depend upon it on them about. Um, Emails are something that I think people just are used to using for a very long time. Businesses still overwhelmingly use email to communicate with their employees, their customers, their patients. So it's widely used. People know what email is, but it is also widely used by a wide range of scammers and crooks. And I think that's why it continues to be a favorite way of having bad things occur to people through email. And it's not just through malicious intent from hackers, although that happens a lot, right? And phishing attempts, that happens a lot, and ransomware gets there. But even mistakes, I mean, there are so many mistakes that have caused huge privacy breaches throughout the world, that's why it is still an issue. It's for the same reason that people still have car accidents, right? We've had cars for a long time, but people still do dumb things and they're targeted in their cars, then bad things happen. So just like that, we need to just make sure that we don't assume that technology again is going to do everything for us. Even with email, we have to take responsibility and be more aware of what we're doing with emails.
And then, in terms of the current privacy outlook, how has this era of remote work changed the privacy risk landscape?
Oh, that's a great question. And you know, it came upon most organizations so quickly, going into our third year now, but still, a lot of folks used to think about remote working as being only applicable to just a few of their employees, and having these very defined, narrowly scoped ways in which people should work remotely. But all of a sudden, everybody's working at home. So all of a sudden, you have people in the same household working at the same kitchen table, and you might have people working for competing organizations at that same kitchen table. You might have people working there who are taking remote learning, remote classes, and that's still going on. And you have the wide area network, the Wi-Fi network, and the router that's being shared by them all. Often it's not secured enough. So this remote working and work from home has really highlighted the need to make sure that all of those issues, all of those risks and vulnerabilities are considered. And you can't just say you have to sit in this room and nobody's around you. That's just not realistic in today's world. You need to start thinking about how to more holistically address the work from home situation where people will have their own personal devices that are incorporated into your corporate um, communications and traffic unless you establish the controls to keep that from having bad things happening.
And then, as we look toward the rest of 2022 and the coming years, which emerging technologies do you anticipate having the greatest impact on privacy?
There are so many, but I think right now, something that has been in the news a little bit, but I haven't really seen a lot of practitioners addressing it, widely. Of course, I don't know all practitioners, so I'm not sure about this, but artificial intelligence and the use of machine learning. What is so important for privacy is that you use AI algorithms on a wide range of data, and oftentimes most of that data is not personal data. But the data that is being analyzed can actually be used to derive information about those folks who are involved with those algorithms and the outcomes. So you need to think about when people are saying, "Oh, we're using AI on this data. Don't worry about it. It's not doesn't meet our definition of personal data, the data we're using it on," or "Don't worry about it. We've de-identified it." Just think about how quickly that AI can actually re-identify that data and cause some not only breaches but also non-compliance issues as well. So you need to look at the AI and just rethink what your definition of de-identification is. Just last week, I had some researchers telling me, well, in the healthcare space, and a lot of you might be in the healthcare space, they're like, well, wouldn't it be legal if we had PHI and we de-identified it according to what HIPAA requires, but then we gave it to researchers, and if they did happen to have that data re-identified, not only through AI, but also combining that data with other data sets, wouldn't we be okay, even if that did reveal patients and result in data that would fall under the definition of PHI, but since we didn't collect it directly from the individuals, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. That's not the way that works. When you're thinking about these new types of technologies that can actually change data and give new insights, you have to go beyond just the letter of the law to know what the spirit of the law is actually requiring you to do.
Absolutely. And so, what do you consider to be some of the most overlooked privacy risks these days?
Okay, I'll quickly go through the list because, as you probably know, we could talk about this for a week. Internet of Things, of course, I've been working with the Internet of Things. I think I did my first project back around 2008 or so, but I've been on the NIST IoT cybersecurity development team for the last 3 years now. So that's high. I mean, there are so many things there. Remote, mobile, and home work areas that we just talked about. Here's something people overlook way too much in organizations: their own employees' privacy, the privacy of their contractors. Um, that's something you have to protect that data as well. Too many organizations focus only on what they are required to do for specific regulations, which oftentimes are not for employees or contractors, but they still need to protect that data. Also, don't forget about, and this is one that I found probably over 90% of organizations don't consider, is what about all of those people who apply to your organization to work there? What are you doing with all of those job applications? And a lot of organizations do background checks and have a lot of sensitive data there. I found most organizations don't protect that data because it doesn't fall under, any business relationship anymore, or to their viewpoint. think about that. I'll quickly name again supply chain risks, huge issues there that do not get looked at sufficiently. Third party compliance. If you are entrusting data to a third party you've contracting, you have responsibility that follows that data to those third parties. You need to do a better job with that. And then, cross-border data transfers is another one. And I'll stop there because I could go on.
And so, what do you think are some privacy roles and skill sets that are going to be especially valuable moving forward?
Oh, I love that question because I think it really, when I think about that question, I think back to my own career and how it evolved. And you know how I mentioned about how it helped me so much to have practitioner experience in IT, in security, and privacy, because I really was able to see how they all interconnect. A lot of times people think of them overlapping, which they do, but it helps to get a clearer view into seeing how they interconnect. So I see that in the future, or actually now, we need more IT privacy engineers that have an understanding of what it means to protect privacy, what needs to be done to fulfill not only legal requirements, but your own organization's promises to those whose personal information you've collected. So IT privacy engineers is going to be a huge need. Data flow management and inventory specialists. I was talking earlier about work from home. Where's all the data from those personal devices in home offices? Do you know if some of that data might have gotten stored on, the kids' laptops as a result of sharing a network? Do you know all the different devices, USB drives? How many USB drives do you have? I have a lot. There's a lot of personal data there, and there's a lot of opportunity and risk there. And then finally, I'm going to say training and awareness, because there is a lot of training and awareness out there. And that's something I've been working with my entire career in multiple ways. But what I see oftentimes is a focus on just one type of training. Phishing, definitely you need phishing training, but you need more than that. You need to go beyond that and actually think about what your organization needs to teach as responsibilities and role-based training, because the folks in HR are going to need to know how to protect privacy and the security of that data in different ways than your IT folks who are designing websites. So those are a few that I think are going to really have a huge need in the future.
So, we don't really have any audience questions right now, but we do have a few comments that I'm curious to hear your thoughts about. So, one of our attendees said that they conducted a study 2 years ago and were able to capture data from IoT devices 10 meters away by war driving. And these were government devices. Can you weigh in a little bit on IoT devices and privacy and what can be done so that organizations can get the benefits of IoT devices without that privacy risk?
Yes. Well, oh, this is a great question. Whoever asked that, I didn't see who it was, but absolutely. You have to think about, with IoT devices, they have their logical access interfaces, right? So that's where you kind of want to start with identifying how are you going to control those interfaces that are connecting and sharing data, sometimes peer-to-peer or device-to-device with other IoT devices. You need to make sure you establish within your organization policies and procedures to help protect against having data leaking out through all of the IoT devices that I'm seeing organizations start using. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of healthcare organizations again. They are actually starting to use, and the physicians and nurses started doing this without consulting many times with IT. They're using Amazon Echoes and Google Homes, carrying them around or even putting them in their patient rooms to support their patient care. Well, that can help, but you need to put security controls and privacy controls around it. And then even in your cars, I mean, just in, gosh, 3, 4 years ago, I had internet connectable car, and I was driving to the East Coast with one of my sons to do a college visit, and I thought I'm going to test out this the connections. As I was sitting in the passenger seat, I wasn't driving while I was doing this. I was looking at all the open access points on the interstate beside me, at the gas stations, at the rest areas, at the hotel, because that was becoming a big thing to have, those hot spots in your cars. I was able, if I would have been malicious, I could have gotten so much data from people driving beside me in the parking lots and so on, because people just do not secure their devices when they're in, these types of situations. They don't think what are the risks with, connecting when we're in our car. So you need to expand your thinking and expand your risk universe to now consider any place where you have smart devices is a place where you need to address risk.
Absolutely. And so, one more question that we got are what are some of the top data privacy practices that an organization should follow?
Well, I think the first thing that organizations can do, and this is going to seem like, oh, this is a boring task or so mundane, but you can't protect privacy if you don't know what data you have. You need to first think about what type of data do we have that can be associated with individuals, with people. Um, Make an inventory, define what personal data is in your organization, and then you need to know where that data is located. Where is it being collected from? Where is it being shared within your organization, shared with others outside of your organization? How long are you keeping that data? How are you deleting that data? After you've done that, this is where, for the top career type of positions I was talking about before, being a data flow analysis and so on, you need to be able to know where that data is to then determine, okay, we know where it is. Where's our vulnerabilities and risk? And while someone who's good at doing risk assessment and vulnerability analysis is doing that, have somebody, it could be the same person, of course, but have someone who knows about the legal issues related to that data to identify how do we need to be protecting this data, and how do we need to be giving individuals access to their own associated data based upon the type of data that we're collecting, where we're collecting it from, and how we're using it.
Yeah. And so, what are some new challenges that we're seeing around data privacy when it comes to new emerging technologies like metaverse and blockchain?
Oh my gosh. It's so interesting, in the NFTs that are out there, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, but I see so many different vulnerabilities. Um, I think right now it's because they are so new. The vulnerabilities within those spaces, within the metaverse, and within the use of blockchain, we've already seen that blockchain has had vulnerabilities that have been exploited, and people have lost a ton of money through those incidents. Now, a lot of times, in fact, on LinkedIn, I had someone saying, well, that wasn't a problem with blockchain. That was a problem with the people using blockchain, and they weren't doing things correctly. Well, a technology isn't secure if you don't address the human factor. So that is an issue with blockchain, addressing the human factor. It is with anything new that you're using. So I guess for my organization and other organizations, this would not be something I would be an early adopter for and just jumping right onto the bandwagon without seeing what the actual vulnerabilities are. I would recommend that you look at some vulnerability catalogs, like the MITRE NIST, the MITRE vulnerabilities catalog, and their attack ATT ampersand CK catalog. I love that because it actually includes a lot of real life situations. So you can look there to find out if those new types of technologies and activities are experiencing any exploits, any problems, any attacks. Um, do your homework before you actually adopt it enterprise wide.
Yeah, we had a couple of questions kind of relating to this. What about the risk of the Internet of Bodies? Connected devices that monitor the human body, collect physiological, biometric, behavioral data, and then exchange that information over a wireless or hybrid network.
Yes. Oh, I first started knowing about, especially like embeddables, right? When you have those different types of tiny grain size computers embedded usually between your thumb and your pointing finger. It is becoming more common. Um, One of my business friends, Dr. Katina Michael, and her husband, Dr. MG Michael, they actually created the term ubervalence that is just about that, the internet of bodies, right, where you have the ability to connect your body not only through embeddables but wearables as well, and that data, just think about how if you're in an organization that only looks at protecting data or using data according to guidelines or rules that are found within laws and regulations, you're not going to find a lot of the data that these devices are collecting through those embeddables and wearables in there. So you do need to realize that a lot of these different types of devices are creating data that might be misused, might be shared inappropriately, and could come back to harm those about whom they apply. I was on Twitter yesterday. I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. Go Chiefs! And I was on Twitter yesterday, and it showed the trainer for Patrick Mahomes put his heart rate output on a tweet, and I looked at that because it was showing in the last few seconds of the Bills game that they ultimately won, what his heart rate was, and I was thinking, oh, why did they do that? And of course, everybody's probably thinking, what are they going to do with that? Well, if I was looking at that as a cardiologist working for a competing team, I might be able to see where there are, some weaknesses that could potentially be exploited in some way. Now, for what they put online, some of you might think, they can't do that with, that data. You never know that we have AI, and plus, it's just a fact that he had a wearable monitor, right, to collect that data. This is being done at every level of sports. It's being done even in non-sport situations. So yeah, this is going to become, answering my earlier question before, this is going to become an area where people are going to actually need to have expertise and be able to provide guidance for in every organization, embeddables and wearables and data that doesn't fit into any legal definition nicely.
Thanks, Rebecca. It looks like we might have time for one more question, and I get asked this all the time. Who should hold the privacy portfolio, legal or IT?
I don't think it should be one area, quite frankly. I mean, oftentimes I'm seeing a trend in having legal be a how some organizations have co-CEOs and so on. I'm seeing a trend, and I think it's a good trend, to have in the larger organizations those who have deep legal knowledge have a shared role in managing privacy with the folks in information security, data protection, IT, whatever your organization might be, because they both have unique perspectives. And they can see, again, back to my earlier comment about how intertwined they are. So I think for large organizations, it can be shared. Now, a lot of small and mid-sized organizations, that's where oftentimes those organizations usually don't have an internal lawyer who's a privacy expert. So in those cases, I've seen oftentimes the person responsible for information security or IT is good to have the privacy responsibility, and then you can use someone outside of the organization to provide the legal guidance and the consult with them to make the best decisions for your organization.
Thanks. And it looks like that's all the time we have for questions. We're going to try to answer some more questions in the comments. Additionally, you can feel free to visit ISACA's Privacy Engage forum that has experts from all over the world who might be able to help answer your questions as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca, and thank you to everybody in the audience for joining us today. If you want more information on this topic, we have several additional privacy resources at isaca.org/data privacy. Now, this includes our new Privacy in Practice Global Research Report, a free guide on improving your privacy program in 2022, a webinar on the state of privacy, and our Certified Data Privacy Solutions Engineer certification. Thank you for joining us, and have a great Data Privacy Day.